Today we are going to start with fifth chapter of history, that is the Revolt of 1857 in India. The Indian Rebellion of 1857 was a major but ultimately unsuccessful uprising in India from 1857 to 1858 against the rule of the British East India Company, which functioned as a sovereign power on behalf of the British. This event is known by many names, including the Sepoy Mutiny, the Indian Mutiny, the Great Rebellion, the Revolt of 1857, the Indian Insurrection, and the India's First War of Independence. Now, let's talk about causes of the revolt. Political causes. Lord Dalhousie was the Governor General of India till 1848 to 1856. Under him, the British followed an expansion policy in India. Lord Dalhousie, through his policy, had added considerable territories to the British Empire in India. The policy of annexation reached its climax when he implemented the policy of doctrine of lapse and annexed the Indian states on charges of misgovernance and absence of a son. In course of 8 years, Dalhousie annexed Satara, Sambalpur, Jhansi, Nagpur and Jaipur. This policy provoked the Indian rulers against the British government. As part of the doctrine of lapse policy, the titles and pensions of some Indian princes were confiscated. The pension of Bajirao II to his son was discontinued after his father's death, and Rani of Jhansi, Rani Lakshmibai, was also deprived of her rights. Economic causes. The economic policy of the British adversely affected every citizen of the Indian society. The British exploited the economic resources of India to their advantage and drained our wealth by crippling the Indian trade and industry. Under the British, India turned into a colonial economy to serve the British capitalist interest. Heavy taxation, eviction, discriminatory tariff policy against Indian products and destruction of traditional handicrafts that hit peasants, artisans and small zamindars. These problems led Indians to revolt against the British government. Now let's talk about social and religious causes. The attempt to bring about social reforms in India by the British was not liked by the general public. The social legislations on the evils as sati, infanticide, remarriage of the widows, etc. were considered as interference in the religious matters of Indians. The introduction of English education, the propagation of the work of the Christian missionaries, and the changing of the Hindu laws of property with a view to facilitate the conversion of Hindu into Christianity made the Orthodox Hindus extremely restless. Military causes. The Indian soldiers were considered inferior and were ill-treated by high officers. The high ranks in the army were exclusively reserved for the Englishmen, and the Indian soldiers were not allowed to rise beyond the level of a subedar. The immediate cause of the revolt was an introduction of the new Enfield rifle and the greased cartridge. In loading the rifle, the sepoy, before inserting the cartridge, had to bite off its top. It was believed that the grease is made out of fats of cows and pigs. This was objectionable to the Hindus and Muslims alike. These rumors popped up like a fire, discontent against the British in the form of a revolt. The first revolt was spotted out in 1857 at Barakpur in Bengal. The Sepoy Mangal Pandey on 29th March 1857 killed senior officers on parade and started the revolt. The Indian sepoys got inspired by Mangal's act, and tension started in the entire regiment. Mangal Pandey shot himself to avoid humiliating trial at the army court. However, he survived and is again put on trial. Later, he was hanged by the Britishers. On 9th May 1857, 85 soldiers in Meerut refused to use the new rifles and were sentenced to 10 years imprisonment for defying the orders on the issue of greased cartridges. On the next day, the other sepoy mutinied and released their fellow mates. The sepoys marched towards Delhi and reached Red Fort in the early hours by 11th May. They persuaded Bahadur Shah Zafar II, the Mughal emperor, to become the leader of the revolt and proclaimed himself as Sahenshahe-i-Hindustan. The rebel captured the city of Delhi from the Britishers. So here we end with this first part. Thank you.